Hey, a book club. Here's my top 10 list of books that my kids and I have loved reading together over the years. In the immortal words of Dr. Seuss, the more that you read, the more things you'll know, the more that you learn, the more places you'll go. Guys, it is a fact, hopefully it's an undisputed fact at this point, that reading is good for you. And another fact, hopefully undisputed, reading to children is good for them. Why? What's so important about reading to kids? Well, over the 20 years I've had of reading to my 6 kids, here are some quick reasons that I find reading to kids is beneficial. You can look on Google and get a whole big list, but these are my 6. It's super fun. It creates amazing memories. And I still remember reading with my mom, sitting on her bed, while she read Wizard of Oz to me and my brothers. Reading helps kids develop empathy as they learn about situations that are different than their own. Reading together teaches children that problems are for solving, not avoiding. Reading together expands a child's vocabulary. Reading together promotes longer attention spans. Reading together encourages independent reading later on. And the list doesn't end there. This post isn't about the benefits. I just wanted to point out that there are some great benefits, and that's why I like to read with my kids. And over the years, we have read many books together. And I want this post to be about sharing the stories that we have loved the most. So maybe you can find some value in these books reading with your family. So without further ado, here it is. Top 10 kids that my kids and I have enjoyed reading together. First, number 10. By Neil Gaiman, the classic storyteller, modern classic storyteller. I think he's one of the best storytellers around. This is Neil Gaiman's Fortunately the Milk. Now, Neil Gaiman writes a lot of stuff that's for grown-ups, but he has some really cool kids stuff, and he is a huge advocate for reading to children, and he's got some really fun books for children. He's a dad himself, and Fortunately, the Milk is a dream come true for any dad or mom who likes to tell stories. It's about 100 pages long, so it's not a huge commitment. There are super fun illustrations, and it's just really perfectly read-aloudable. It's about a dad who leaves the house in the morning to pick up some milk for breakfast. And while he's gone, he gets way more than he bargained for. And so by the time he gets home, he's had this adventure, and he tells his kids about the adventure, and that's what the story is. And it includes aliens, talking dinosaurs, a volcano god, restless natives, pirates, piranhas, time travel, a hot air balloon, a whole bunch of silly, goofy stuff, and of course, fortunately, the milk. Great, great story that I think you guys, your whole family, will enjoy reading together. Number 9. Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians by my favorite author, Brandon Sanderson. Now, your whole family is going to enjoy Alcatraz. It's the story of Alcatraz Smedry, a 13-year-old boy who's bounced from foster home to foster home his whole life because he's followed by bad luck wherever he goes. Alcatraz breaks anything he touches. Literally. Toys, doors, kitchens, houses. Nothing is safe from Alcatraz. He touches it, it's going to break. And so Alcatraz leads a sad and lonely life until Alcatraz learns that he's not cursed, he's actually talented. In fact, he's the most talented Smedry to ever live, and nothing in his life is actually as it seems. Alcatraz is thrown into a world of good guys with crazy, goofy powers like breaking things, being late, tripping with style, waking up ugly, being a really bad dancer, and others. The bad guys in this story actually live among us in disguise, right under our noses, working very hard to convince us that they deserve our trust, all while planning for world domination. They are the Librarians. It's so fun. You thought the library was a safe place? You're wrong. Read Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians. It's so fun to read together. Expect puns, jokes, clever characters, snappy dialogue, an exciting plot, hidden messages, breaking the fourth dimension, laughing out loud. I'm telling you, it's super fun. There's 5 books in this series. They are all sure to please. These are family-friendly, super fun books to read. Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians by Brandon Sanderson. Okay, Man, that was only the 2. We've got 8 more to go. Number 8, Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. Now, this is the only picture book on the list, but not because I have a thing against picture books. It's because, to me, this book is that special. I mean, if I'm going to pick the book, if they're going to let me pick the book we're going to read, I'm going to pick Where the Wild Things Are. I love it. It is so fun to read. The illustrations are so imaginative and they stir so much imagination amongst your kids. Just make sure, just do me a favor. When you read this story to them and you get to those pages where there's no words on them, when Max says, "Let the wild rumpus start," and then there's pages with no words, it's just pictures, make sure you let your kids stand up and rumpus. Teach your kids to rumpus. It's so fun to read Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. So I encourage you to try that one. Give that a try. If you don't have that in your collection, add it to your collection. Okay, number 7 is The Witches by the great Roald Dahl. Now, great because as a children's author. And there's actually a handful of Roald Dahl books that are in my top 10 list. It's been 30 years since I was 10 years old and in the 4th grade. But I still remember, all of this time later, how wonderful it was to have my 4th grade teacher read The Witches to me. And now I'm a dad, and it's my turn to screech out in all the Grand High Witch's glory, all of her lines, all of her Slavic accented lines to my kids. I actually had as much fun reading The Witches as they did. Now, you haven't read The Witches yet? If you haven't, go grab a copy, find a kid, and fix it now. I am telling you, there's nothing more fun than watching your kids' faces when you read in your best R-rolling Slavic accented screechy scream. I'm going to do a demonstration for you. Now, I can't roll my R's very well, but and I don't do accents very well, but I sure have a lot of fun reading. So anyway, here's what it sounds like when you read The Grand High Witch. "I am having breakfast this morning," cried the Grand High Witch. "And what am I seeing? I'm seeing a revolting sight. I'm seeing hundreds, I'm seeing thousands of rotten, repulsive little children playing on the sand. Why have ye not rubbed them out, these filthy, smelly children?" With each word she spoke, flicks of pale blue phlegm shot from her mouth like bullets. "We will do better," murmured the audience. "We will do much better." "Better is not good enough," shrieked the Grand High Witch. "I demand maximum results. So here are my orders. My orders are that every single child in this country shall be rubbed out, squashed, squirted, frittered, and frittered before I come here again in 1 year's time. Do I make myself clear?" God bless Roald Dahl. Should be required reading for all audiences who like to have fun. Boring families, you're welcome to skip. Parents, you just might want to know there's a lot of grandmama smoking a cigar, which is part of the funny. And there's a lot of witches being wicked to children because they smell like dogs' droppings. The children, not the witches. It's a lot of fun. I encourage you to read The Witches by Roald Dahl. Now, speaking of witches, another story about witches that is actually a new addition to our family's favorite list of stories to read is The Wizards of Once by Cressida Cowell. Super unexpected fun. Cressida Cowell, if you haven't heard from her, is the person who gave the world How to Train Your Dragon, which you probably know from the movies more than you do from her books. But she has gifted us with The Wizards of Once, and I'm certain that if you haven't heard of The Wizards of Once yet, you will soon, because it is wonderful. Now, wizards and warriors, they are sworn enemies, but when a 13-year-old wizard boy whose magic hasn't quite come in yet, and a 13-year-old warrior girl who's more of a lover than a fighter meet on this fate-filled night in the fright-filled wildwood, you know there's a grand adventure that's about to start. And what an adventure it is. Because the evil and actually quite terrifying witches are supposed to be extinct, but they're actually not. Forbidden magic, giants who are very kind and think big thoughts, werewolves who are a bit crazy, tiny sprites who get into hilarious mischief. We've got magic swords, shape-shifting. We've got wizards, quests, spells, lessons to learn, characters to grow. I mean, fun, peril, laughs, scares, heartbreaks, redemptions, great climaxes, mysteries. I'm telling you, the Wizards of Once have everything, and they are a blast to read for the whole family. So Wizards of Once should be on your list. There's 4 books in that series. Number 5 is a 5-book series by Brandon Mull called Fablehaven. And okay, when I think of Fablehaven, I just think yay for good books. The kids and I have read Fablehaven a couple of times. With my 6 kids, I have groups of kids. So I've read it to the older kids and I've read it to the younger kids, and they all love it. It's always a winner. I mean, how could they not? It's about a brother and a sister who team up with their grandma and their grandpa to care for and protect a preserve of magical fairy creatures called Fablehaven. In fact, it's a preserve for all of the magical creatures you can imagine. The good creatures are magical, they're occasionally beautiful, and they're frequently mischievous. The bad creatures are magical, occasionally beautiful, and always dangerous. But it's really hard to tell which are the good ones and which are the bad ones. The adventure factor is high. The peril is intense enough to keep kids on their edge of the seat and their dad interested in finding out what happens next. Whenever we read Fablehaven, we're always excited to get to the end, but then disappointed when it has ended. And it makes us want to start another adventure. Fablehaven by Brandon Mull should be on your list. That's number 5 on our list. Number 4, though, on our list is one that you've probably heard of. Number 4 is Harry Potter. Now, by J.K. Rowling. Hopefully Harry Potter is something that's already been on your radar. But if you haven't, here's just a couple things about Harry. So one of the great things about reading Harry to your kids is Harry grows with kids. So when I talk about reading Harry Potter, I'm talking about books 1 through 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Books 5, 6, and 7 are typically beyond the age that kids who want to be read to will be interested in reading. And you'll find out because you'll sit down and you'll read book 1 and your kids will love it, and book 2 and book 3. And if book 3 is a little too much for your kids, you'll see that they're kind of getting bored and they don't have as much of an attention span. So wait a few months or a year and pick up book 3, and same with book 4. And I bet you by this time you're going to have like a 10-year-old or 11-year-old, and you're going to be like, let's read book 5 together. And your 10 or 11-year-old will be like, this one's kind of boring, and they'll have shorter attention spans. They want to read it as much, and that's okay. So you'll just say, okay, let's stop here and move on to something else. But the first 4 books of Harry Potter are magical, and not just because they're about magic. The first 4, Harry Potter, the entire series, but particularly the first 4 books, the ones that you want to read together, there's so much in there that your kids are going to enjoy, and you're going to love reading to them. The characters are amazing, and everyone can relate to Harry and his friends as he tries to figure out his life and school and his friends and solve problems. Everyone can relate to Harry Potter, and all-time best, honestly, all-time best. Make sure you add Harry Potter to your list. Don't try to read it, cram in all 7 if your kids aren't able to handle all 7. They'll get bored. You'll see. I promise you're going to be like, oh, this is what Dan was talking about. So don't stress if your kids don't want to get all Harry Potter books in. Okay, number 3. Moving on to number 3 on the list. This is a special one to me. It's The Wild Robot, and it's written by Peter Brown. It's actually 2 books. The Wild Robot is book 1. The Wild Robot Escapes is book 2. Whenever I read this book, I've read it to my kids multiple times. Whenever I read it, I have thoughts like this: what a great idea! And oh, I love how that sounds, and why didn't I think of that? I can't believe he can say so much in so few words, or something like, this isn't fair. I want this to have been my idea. Yeah, I'm quoting myself. These are actually the thoughts I think while I'm reading The Wild Robot on every page. It's like, it's so simple that you're like, I could do that. But then it's so like well written that you're like, wow, I could never have done that. Peter Brown, the author, is just very, very good. And my family loved The Wild Robot. I read it myself. I was blown away. I immediately turned around and started reading it to my little kids. And they inhaled it. They embraced it. And when we finished book one, back when we read book one, book two hadn't been published yet. So we were anxiously waiting for book two. And when book two finally came out, we got it first day we started reading it and finished it a few days later. Guys, The Wild Robot, it's so great. We quietly teared and loudly cheered in all of the right places. And I'm still trying to figure out how a story about a robot with a goose for a son can have the same impact on a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old and a 45-year-old. They're perfect middle grade stories. Short, rapid fire chapters are perfect for reading aloud or letting a 10-year-old feel like she's reading quickly and successfully by herself. The simple sentence structure is flawless and it's a joy to read. The illustrations are beautiful. And when we came across one, we'd all stop reading and just stare at it for a few minutes. I'm telling you, there are few books with as much heart and even fewer with as much soul. And not just because Roz is a robot. I can't recommend both The Wild Robot and The Wild Robot Escapes more. They're as close to perfect as you're going to find. Just a note, Wild Robot, book one kind of ends on a cliffhanger. It's a little bit sad, actually. And you'll want to either have book two ready to go or just assure your kids that book two fixes everything and everything ends with a perfectly wonderful, happy ending. So that is book three, The Wild Robot. Okay, getting close to number one, book two is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. And once again, God bless Roald Dahl. I say it all the time whenever I talk about Roald Dahl. The world's most perfect read aloud children's stories. You can pick any of them. The ones on my list are The Witches and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I'll tell you what one is in a minute. But Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, oh my goodness. Imagination, smiles, laughter, snuggles. Can we read tonight, Dad? Just one more chapter? Gosh, silly names, silly words, silly candy, silly voices. Daddy, I want an Oompa Loompa. Golden tickets, eatable, a chocolate river, gum behind your ear, Charlie Bucket, Willy Wonka, Grandpa Joe, Veruca Salt. Hey, Dad, what are we going to read next? These are all the things that make Charlie and the Chocolate Factory magic. And Roald Dahl's books, they're just, they're perfect for reading. So much fun to read aloud. So Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, that's our number two. Number one, Roald Dahl, the greatest, most fun read aloud book, the BFG, the Big Friendly Giant. Now, I've read the BFG so many times. I have loved it more each time I've read it, literally. My kids, each time I've read it to them, they've loved it. We've read it multiple times together. And we've got, there's things in BFG that we've incorporated into our family. Like we talk about the witching hour at our house because we've read BFG. We have a drink in our house that we named Frobscottle because of the BFG. I mean, it's wormed its way into the fabric of who we are as a family. It's that much fun to read. The BFG, I mean, it's about a little girl named Sophie who gets scooped up by a giant in the middle of the night and whisked off to giant country where he has to protect her from all the bad giants because the BFG is the good giant and he blows dreams into people's houses and helps them have dreams. And he teaches Sophie how to collect dreams and be a dream collector. And then they concoct a plan to go go convince the Queen of England to help get rid of all of the other evil bad giants. And anyway, BFG is outstanding. It's fantastic. It's an adventure. It's so fun to read. The creative way that Roald Dahl writes and creates words that you get to say out loud as a dad while you read to your kids. I'm telling you, it's outstanding. Whew, we made it. That's our top 10. And if you've made it this far, congratulations. Thanks for sticking with it. But the top 10 most favorite books that me and my kids love to read. That was it. I hope you find time to read with your kids, and I hope you find time to enjoy the magic that comes from reading together as a family. I'm telling you, there's nothing like it. Happiest of reading, my friends. Take care.